He's Howard Ibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 28 years of experience. Together, Henry and I are the Brief Brothers. We love talking about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we're back with another episode. Today we have as our guest a young gentleman named Todd Turner. He is a freelance graphic designer with his own business out of North Carolina. And he's come up with a cool creative training product called Wash-A-Pig. And he's going to tell us more about it. So let's join the conversation. Henry, we are back with another episode of the Brief Brothers. Today we have Todd Turner. Now, you and I kind of had this brainstorm to put out a little call to folks on LinkedIn to step up and offer themselves as guests. And Todd was one of the first people, I think the first person to say, hey, I've got something to say. And boy, does he ever have something to say. Todd is a working creative like me and like you, Henry, although you're a strategist, no one's perfect. And he has this game, this amazing creative game called Wash-A-Pig. And that's what attracted our attention to him. I'm going to let him tell us about that. We're going to dive into his background. But first, Todd, welcome. There it is. Thanks, Henry. Welcome to the Brief Brothers. Henry and I are delighted to have you join our show.
Thanks for having me. I've been a big fan for years. I mean, going way back to I think episode 2 or 3 was the first one I ever listened to or something like that. But
okay.
Yeah.
Our new best friend.
Yeah, I kind of kept track of you a little bit, over the years and everything, but very cool to finally talk to you guys.
Yeah, it is. And you watched us when Henry and I would talk at about this speed because we didn't know what to say, and now we're more relaxed, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the funny things we discovered going back and looking at original episodes.
Really?
So Wash-A-Pig is a really cool product. It's a great creative inspirational game. But let's back up first and let's find out, Todd, tell us, how did you find your way to advertising? What is your career trajectory? And then how did this idea come to you?
Okay. So started out as graphic designer. So that was my training and everything. And, at the time, this is back early 2000s when I was in school, and I thought I wanted to make magazines. And
this is university school or
Yes.
design school?
University. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Reading my mind, Henry.
Small state college and everything. It really didn't know. I didn't know even then that graphic design was a thing until I was on my way to orientation. Then I realized, oh, graphic design is something I've wanted to do. I was actually making my own little punk rock zines and stuff during high school. And
I was going to ask you, were you artistic in elementary and high school? Did you draw? How did you get attracted to the visual arts and graphic design?
Yeah, I think, I was always into comic books and everything when I was a kid, but never learned to draw, never really had a skill for it necessarily and everything. But, around high school time, I found, PageMaker back in the day, and just wanted to make my own little zine myself and everything, print it out and put it on a photocopier and everything. And that's what I did. I just didn't know what I was doing or anything, but, thought I wanted to do magazines. Went to school for design. And then when I got out, I was at an agency for a marketing agency for just a little while. And then a billboard company found my resume and interviewed me, and it clicked. I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I really wanted to do kind of words and pictures. I just wanted to advertising, I realized, was what I really wanted to do. I wish I had been told that in high school. I could have gone to something else like portfolio school or something. But anyways, I ended up there. So went to work for Adams Outdoor, which is it was the 4th largest billboard company in the country. And they're really still known for doing really great creative and everything, but not a lot of people have heard about them and everything. And
so it's an in-house agency for the billboard company.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. They work directly with clients.
Yep.
Wow.
And
nice.
I honestly thought it would be a job. I'll spend a year there, get my feet wet in advertising, move on. And I ended up spending 14 years there.
Wow.
Now,
And
where are you calling in from? And are you living now where you started, or have you moved around a bit?
I've moved around quite a bit. So currently I am in Minneapolis at the moment, but that's not where I live. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Well,
I've lived in,
it's kind of a thing among advertising professionals to tumbling tumbleweed to bounce around. I've lived in I forget how many cities,
yeah.
and we've interviewed creatives who've hopped continents, not just cities.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual. I don't know if that is that true with strategists, Henry? Do they do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, generally it's the same agency trajectory. I mean, there's a few hubs of advertising in the country. New York, Chicago, LA are seem to be the big ones, with Minneapolis and also there. In my case, I'm one of the rare ones that has been able to stay in the same market my whole career, but I work in the niche of Hispanic advertising, so it's really like LA and Miami mainly. So I've been fortunate enough to not have to move for work. I mentioned off camera that I worked for Hill Holiday, which is a Boston-based agency, but I worked in their Miami office, so
Yeah.
I never
Todd
had to
and
leave.
I have jumped cities. Henry has jumped streets,
Yeah, neighborhoods.
neighborhoods, right? Okay, so are you visiting Minneapolis? I mean, Minneapolis is a town with which I'm very familiar. I lived there for 8 years and worked for some big shops there as well. So
Yeah.
what brings you to Minneapolis? Are you visiting?
Yeah, I got a client meeting. Had a client meeting
Ah,
today. And we're doing something that kind of involves the city, like, or it's kind of for the city or something, and we've never been there. So we had to come see it. Like, why
yeah.
do something around, based on a city or something that you've never been to? So we had to get a couple days in here at least.
Better in April than in February. So
Yeah,
good for
right.
you.
Yeah, it has been
So
amazing here. So, well,
yeah, I kind of keep track of the weather because it's an old stomping ground. So you've worked for some agency, Adams. What was the name? Adams. What was it called?
Adams
Out,
Outdoor.
out,
Adams Outdoor.
Yep.
And you worked there for quite a while.
Yep.
We were talking just a minute before we hit the record button that you are now on your own. So did you move? Did you leave Adams for on your own, or did you go someplace else?
No, a couple stops in between and everything. Worked at another media company, Outfront, which is one of the big three in the country. I'm sure you guys have heard of.
Mhm.
Was there for a couple years. I was working in Chicago while I was there. And then went to a small agency in Nashville, and then kind of on my own. Like, I had a couple other short stops in between all this and everything, but yeah, just realized I thought, I'd never want to touch another billboard again. And after doing a couple other things, I was like, shit, I really just want to do billboards for clients and that's it. And me and a good creative partner, we both found ourselves in Charlotte at the same time. And we were like, why don't we start this? Like, we were actually looking for work at the time. So we were like, well, why don't we join forces while we can and everything and see if we can make a go of this. And I mean, and we specifically do out of home only. I mean,
Hmm.
it seems weird. Some people look at us and they're like, you're crazy. How can you make a living out of that? But I
Well,
don't know.
people said you're going to be able to talk about how long can you talk about the Creative Brief, and 3.5 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So
So
Right.
I want to put in the good word for out of home. It, you mentioned starting out with your own zine and stuff, and we've seen that basically print advertising is dead.
Mhm.
Um, Out of home is a medium that has evolved, but has not gone away and will not go away, right? As long as people are out there on the highways and byways of America, there's going to be somebody with a space and that's going to say, space for rent, to put up advertising messages. And
Mhm.
to me, it's one of the places where that good old fashioned mix of words and pictures, like you said, um, it still exists. And to me, also, what I like about out of home is the same thing I like about radio, which is the constraints make it that you have to be really clever to do something good. Radio, obviously, the constraint is it's all theater of the mind. So how do you convey a memorable message um, in radio? And in out of home, it's, you know, you have to economize with the words. It's just, you got to grab attention and really. And by the way, the two media work really well together because they're consumed primarily in an automobile. So you know, I think Mark Ritson would say we know that a two medium campaign always performs better than a single medium campaign. And so those two together, I think, are particularly powerful.
I agree 100%. In fact, I won my first and only Clio doing a radio spot way back in the beginnings of my career. And I always loved radio as a writer. So I know you're a graphic designer, and you teamed up with a writer to start this company. Do you have a name for your little going concern?
Yeah, so we're called Up to Something.
A good
Ooh,
name.
I like that. Clever. Okay.
Yep. And
Copy.
honestly, like, I mean, just not to correct you, Howard, and everything, but even my partner is not a writer. Like
Oh, really?
he's more of the writer, I guess, but again, not totally trained. Neither one of us are totally trained as writers, and that's kind of why I came up with Wash a Pig in the first place.
Okay. Well, you know, sometimes when you get trained, that kind of ruins you.
Right?
I know way too many lawyers who can't live outside the world of facts,
Yeah.
and their whole way of thinking is so skewed. But don't let it, you know, don't tell anybody that I said that, because I have lawyer family members and I don't want them to hear. But the one thing I can count on is that my family won't be watching this podcast anytime soon.
Yeah, neither will mine.
Okay. So
I'm going to interrupt you, Howard. Sorry, real
go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
This is not a topic we've ever touched on the podcast, but I just thought I'd bring it up because you kind of tangentially, which is we're lone warriors a lot of times. Like I'm fortunate, my wife works in the industry, but a lot of us, you know, people don't understand what the hell we do. Like we go, like they really don't.
You're
And
right.
as try to explain to people what a strategist is in an ad agency, like their view of ad agencies are made by horrible movies. And you know, Mad Men, which while a great TV show that dramatized like a glamorous period of time, I would say, in the advertising business, doesn't really reflect what is done in advertising. But it's just interesting that we're kind of like these solo warriors. Like nobody, our families don't know what we do,
Well,
nor
I
do
mean,
they care.
we had Paul Taylor, the Adweek creative director. If you follow, do you know who I'm talking about, Todd?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he often has, you know, he skewers us. He's kind of like Tom Fishburne. He knows us very well, and he skewers us and parodies us. And I can recall a number of times when Paul would post an image of kind of a middle-aged couple who is some copywriter or art director's mom and dad, trying to figure out what it is that son or daughter does, and failing miserably. But
Breaking.
yeah, breaking. Well, everything is
Parents
breaking.
parents still don't understand what copywriter's son does.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if he said the same thing for strategists, but I'm sure he could.
Oh.
So I think we suffer from that, but that's kind of a protective bubble. Nobody understands what we do, so just leave us alone and we'll go ahead and do it. Right. Except, and again, we're getting a little tangential, and you've, I'm sure, experienced this, Todd, when the client thinks that they can do what we do better than we do.
Yeah.
They're wannabe copywriters, wannabe art directors, on, and then they tell us what to do.
Yeah.
That'll be a topic for another episode. So,
Well, especially for like media companies that I've worked at, like, you know, nobody's coming to the media company for the creative necessarily, right? Like they're
that's a good
coming
point.
for the media, and creative is just kind of a part of the whole process and everything. And you know, I think Adams did it well. Outfront does it really well too. Like they are putting themselves out there as creative also. And, you know, eventually that takes over, but, and people do like come back for the creative, you know, so they may not initially come to that company because we do great creative, but they end up staying with that company.
Well, that's a throwback to the original model of advertising with
Mhm.
the advertising agents in the different cities selling brokered newspaper space and then the creative got thrown in kind of for free.
Yep.
You got a commission and you threw in the creative for free, and then the agency started to distinguish themselves based on the level of creativity that they were offering. And this was all before the media got pulled out of the creative,
Yeah.
and basically they broke the atom, the way that it had worked so effectively. But it sounds like in this small corner of the advertising space, the outdoor companies kind of still have a model that is reminiscent of that original model. That's pretty cool.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Todd, and guess that what you and your partner come up with is fun creative within the confines of what the client feels comfortable doing.
For sure. Yeah.
Would
All the time.
you,
And I probably gravitate more towards just fun and funny all the time. Like, just can't hardly ever do anything serious, but that's just me.
are you given the room to do that in the work
Yeah,
that you've done?
usually, you know, there's always, yeah, something like that. It's people put up a billboard or something and they do want it to be fun. I mean, if it's, sad and boring just sitting there, it's not very interesting, obviously. And one of the big things I read when I first got into out of home was a quote, but that a billboard is an event. So even if it's not funny per se, like I try to put some action into whatever it is. So sometimes you can get away with straight headline copy, that's it. But if you've got image on there, it better not just be an image of somebody sitting there. It better be a image of somebody doing something, so I
Right.
try to like breathe some life into it, go beyond just a rectangle, try to bring it into real life, because out of home, like Henry said, like it's right there in front of you. It's we're sharing the space with the medium, so we can practically experience it right there
Uh,
in
Well,
front of
go
us.
go back decades into our award show books. One show CAs and brands have made their names with some outstanding creative, laugh out loud or provocative outdoor. You
Yeah.
know, billboards, bus boards, anything you can think of. It's a couple of words, powerful image, or maybe it's just an image. No words at all. And it
there's
really,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think that there's two things. One is just the power of humor overall, right? Depending on the brand. Obviously, if you're selling funeral home plans or whatever, that's not a place to use humor necessarily, although you probably could argue that there would be a place. But it also depends on the brand's personality and so forth. But humor in general, I think, is generally accepted as like one of the best ways to draw attention. But the other thing I was going to say, that in out of home, even more than humor, I think cleverness
Hmm.
is really important. And you can use kind of that juxtaposition of the image with the headline a lot of ways, ironically or sarcastically or in different ways. No, those aren't the only two, but to be clever, right? And Howard, you and I talk about it all the time about that. Don't connect all the dots for them. Let them complete the circle, right? And
Hmm.
if you feel like you're part of the inside joke, that gives you a connection with the advertising, that you don't have otherwise. Like, oh, I get what they're trying to do. And it makes it impossible then to forget that advertising, because you had to do a little bit of work to get there and get the joke or get whatever was being said. This is probably an outdoor headline that's used in every market by multiple, but there's one here locally that has that says your wife is hot, and then it's for an AC repair company, right? And so it catches there's a woman in a bikini and it says your wife is hot, and then it has the AC company. We have
Brand here.
Before you before you even said it, I knew exactly what we were talking
yeah,
about.
it's overused, it's a cliche, but
Right.
it's one of those that like no matter how many times you've seen the joke, you gotta friggin'
Yeah,
smile.
well, when health companies started doing, consumer advertising, I can't tell you how many times I saw a billboard that said, "For the health of it." That was one of those. I think my favorite billboard of all time, and I can't even tell you whether it's a spec billboard or for real, but it was for Viagra, and the billboard was just standing vertical. the picture of the pill and the word Viagra. That's all it was.
Here in
And
my, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it, and it really was a terrible brand ad because it made no claim about the brand. But I think at the time, and maybe still, Viagra owns the category, so they can do whatever they want, and it doesn't matter if it's really reinforcing the brand. But yeah, it's like, and that required you to at least take a nanosecond and say, "Oh, okay, yep, I get it."
Yeah.
It required you to be involved in it.
And
Here in,
that's the tough thing with out of home is like it is a nanosecond. You know, me and my partner are constantly kind of triple checking our work and making sure, like, yeah, we want to get that, leave that space for the viewer to kind of put things together, but it's got to be just a little bit. It's got to be the right amount for out of home, or it's lost completely and nobody cares.
Well, David Ogilvy said, "Never underestimate the intelligence of your customer." Now, in the 40s, he had a second part to that, which isn't
and
necessarily
she's your
political,
wife.
and she's your wife. So I would add today is, and your customer, you'd stop there. Never underestimate the intelligence of your customer. You do so at your peril. That's how I add it today, because it doesn't matter who it is. But and I got what he said. So you've got a pretty good business going here. It's pretty niched.
Mhm.
And you've got a partner and you've got clients, and clearly you're doing a little bit of traveling.
Yep.
Now, Wash a Pig is called a creative training game, and it's a little card game. Tell us about the origins of this. Where did it come from? How'd you come up with the idea?
Yeah.
And then tell us what this is.
So, well, I'll explain what it is. Then we can go to like how to
Yeah.
did it. So, yeah, Wash a Pig, creative training game. It's a deck of cards, and there are 3 types of cards. And first of all, you've got a what card, and you've got a who card. You've got them all too, and a how card.
Mhm.
So you start with a what card, and those will say it starts with write a headline for, and it'll give you a product. So right now I'm looking at write a headline for gourmet tomato sauce, or write a headline for cold brew coffee, or write a headline for a state fair. So all kinds of different, random, sometimes they're very niche, like little companies, like a plumber or something like that.
Or a
Sometimes,
kayak. There's one that says write a headline for a kayak.
yeah, sometimes it's a product, sometimes it's a service, sometimes it's kind of an event like the state fair one. So then you have who cards, and those are start with speaking to, and those are basically your target audience. So speaking to social media influencers, speaking to astronauts, speaking to people looking for a new place to live. So I've tried to break those up into occupations, people at different stages in life, different enthusiasts for something. One of my favorite ones is UFO researchers.
I like that one too.
And then the last type of card is the how card. And these are like different styles of writing or limitations. So this might be like a text message, or as an insult, in pirate speak. And so what you do is you take a what card and you put it with a who or how card. I invented it, put it together so it's like just 2 of the cards. Some people use all 3 at the same time, and that's like hard mode to me, but you can do it. So, you put 2 cards together. So I've got write a headline for a cannabis dispensary speaking to someone who just got a promotion. And the object is just take 5 minutes, write headlines, and that's it. And that's really the basis of the game. Some people gamify it. Some teams have keep track of who writes the best headline. So there's usually a judge when they play together or something. Like
Someone
several
plays creative director.
Yeah, yeah. I've tried to explain the gamifying it as one person plays the creative director for that round, and they have to pick the best line from that round. And then whoever wins that round is now the creative director, and they, keeps going and
We
going.
we should send a copy of this, Henry, to Paul Taylor, and then he can use this to educate the parents who don't understand what a copywriter does. Because if they played the
That's
game, then they could play creative director and say, "Oh, now I get what you're doing." Yeah.
so you call this on the box a creative training game. So what is the benefit of playing this game and playing it often, or getting in the habit of it? What do you see as the benefits of it?
Yeah. So the reason I came up with it in the first place was at the media companies, most of the creatives at a billboard company where I was at, we all came from design backgrounds. We never had copywriting backgrounds, probably not even advertising backgrounds. And so I was overseeing like 50 creative people all in different cities all over the country. And when I was able to get them together in small groups or a big group or something, I put this game together. It kind of came inspired by several books and like other activities previous creative directors of mine kind of did, and I just kind of put it together formally and made it into this what, who, and how type cards. And it was a way for us to just kind of practice copywriting without, but still make it fun so it didn't feel like work. I hate when we are practicing like what we do or we're just playing around and it's not play because we're like, use a current client that we're actually working on and think of this thing that we might actually do. And that doesn't really expand how we think, So I try to give people things that they would never write headlines for, like hot dogs, and then to an audience that you never write a headline for, like, uh, ghost hunters or something.
So
Just
you had an actual problem that you wanted to solve. You wanted to give your direct, I'm going to assume they're your direct reports
yep,
at the time, a challenge to hone their skills.
yeah.
What I'm finding remarkable, Henry, I think you'll agree with this, is that this is the building blocks of a creative brief. The how, the what, the who, the how. I mean, these are
Yeah.
kind of like
I mean,
questions that
there's a
we would.
target audience. There's
What's the
an
problem?
objective, right?
Yeah.
And
Maybe
then
maybe
there's
a
kind of
limitation.
like a tone section
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting. I think it's kind of a exercise in lateral thinking, right? Like you kind of are putting unrelated things together to kind of see where they could come up. So, in terms of like a warm up for a brainstorm for an actual client, I could see that. In fact, I have a brainstorm schedule that I'm moderating on the 21st of this month. And I'm thinking, and I was, looking for warm up exercises, and I'm for sure going to use this
Yeah, this is
um, be-
great.
because I think
Yeah.
it helps
That's
people get their guard down, get the creative juices flowing, um, build camaraderie, um, and rapport among people that maybe don't work together all the time, that are thrown together into. So congratulations. It's very slick. It's, if you get this game, it is packaged very much the way you'd expect a game to be packaged, very professionally. Very impressed with the quality of the product. How did you come up with the name Wash a Pig?
so that comes from Luke Sullivan's book, Hey Whipple Squeeze This. He tries to explain the creative process, and he says it by saying creativity is like washing a pig. You never really know where to start, and by the end of it, you don't know if the pig is really clean or not. And
Yeah.
so I was actually like in touch with him and everything, and I asked him like, hey, is it cool if I name my game this? And he's like, hell yeah, let's do it.
So tell us, what's the response been like?
It's been great. Like, it's funny, Henry, you're saying everything that I always say to everybody, but it's like playing this game, in the first time that I played it with my bigger group and everything, they were all people that never knew each other before. And in getting in these smaller groups of like 4 or 5 people, they like, some of them became super good friends, and
Hmm.
they're 500 miles apart in real life, but they continued on after that being like good creative partners, virtually and everything. And I also noticed, like, after we'd play this game, whatever we did next was, which might have been kind of a discussion kind of project or something, everybody was way more engaged. Like, just playing this just woke you up. And what I found out later in kind of researching things afterwards is that, it's really play, and
Hmm.
playing just it lowers inhibitions and everything else, and just, makes everybody open, and it's way more fun. And I just think advertising people, we take ourselves way too damn seriously sometimes, and we should just have some fucking fun.
Yep.
I
I,
love
I
that. I love that on the back here you say ages 12 plus 1 to 100 players, 5 to 500 minutes to play. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically like this could be 5 minutes, two people, or you could have 100 people and play for
Just keep
hours.
going. Yeah. Well, for me, this is taking people out of their comfort zone, which is, as I've always said, there's nothing productive comes in your comfort zone. And this is absolutely not linear thinking. You got to be, if you're a linear thinker, this is going to be trouble. We should get this more to lawyers and maybe we'd have fewer problems. Again, another
Here we
a
go
topic.
again with the
Here we go.
lawyers.
Here we go again. Yes. But that's what attracts me to this. I've seen a number of posts on LinkedIn talking about the need to, as what you were saying before, Todd, to have this kind of fresh thinking, childlike approach to your thinking, like first sight, first vision, and this requires this. You cannot think in a linear fashion and make this work. So
Yeah. And how do you learn to do that other than doing it?
just do it
So you just have to
exactly.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I go out and teach creative briefs, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and you can't teach someone how to write a brief by talking. You've got to sit down and do it, and you do it in groups. So this and creative is the same way. You need to work with a partner, whether it's a writer or another designer, doesn't matter. Someone who can bounce your ideas off of. As I've always said, my best art directors were my best BS detectors, the ones who said or no, and then you go back to the drawing board. And this also, to me, fulfills what James Webb Young talked about in his book, A Technique for Producing Ideas. You fill yourself with the information, you brainstorm, you let your conscious mind work, and then you get mentally exhausted and you need to walk away and let the subconscious take over. I think this accelerates that with crazy juxtapositions. And, there's an obsession in our industry. I think we have to be original. And I say, no, nope, nothing's been original since, 4,000 years ago. What's fun about our industry is we take things that exist and put new twists on them. We see them with fresh eyes. This fosters that. So Todd, is there some aspect of what you want to see done with this product that you haven't quite achieved yet, or you just want to keep getting the word out?
Wow, what a weird question. Not a weird question. That's a good question. What do I want to do? I mean, yes, I'm trying to just get the word out. I mean, it doesn't make me any money or anything. Not that I'm trying to make money on it and everything, but it's really small. Like there is so much potential out there for people, every creative director to have it on their desk and everything, and just have it at the ready and everything. And, I think just awareness in general is what I'm trying to do at the moment.
I'll say strategists, because we're called on to lead these brainstorms a lot of times. I think that getting the word out in the strategist community would be really big. And by the way, also, we do a lot of stuff with professors and schools, and I think that this is a great little exercise that students could, advertising students could definitely take advantage of. So how can people get the game?
So you can get it at the website, washapig.com.
Okay. And
All
the
right, yeah.
Only place to get it right now.
website is washapig, all one word.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll post a link. Yeah, to me, this is a lot better than hanging out on your phone. You could get addicted to this, and the benefits would, I think, far exceed what if you could get out of, doom scrolling or whatever it is that we do when we spend too much time on our phone.
Well, people have asked me for like a digital version of it or a mobile app version of it. I'm like, I mean, yes, I probably should do that, but man, there's something about holding things in your hands, and doing it, and maybe even writing with actual pencil and paper.
Old school. I love it.
Yeah.
Todd Turner, the originator of a game called Wash-A-Pig, a great creative tool. Thank you for being on the Brief Brothers with Henry and me. We loved having you.
Thanks for having me, guys. This has been great.
Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Ibach, and together we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time, bye bye.